Hi, Cassie.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, creepy people.
Hello.
Hello. This is PNW, Haunts and Homicides, where we chat about true crime, the paranormal, and all things spooky in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we do. And we also do a tarot reading. Oh, wait. The PNW if you're nasty. I was like, don't forget it. Don't forget it. Don't forget it.
It's her thing.
Technically, it's your thing that I wanted to steal forever and ever.
No, it's like compulsory on my part. It's your thing.
PNW.
PNW.
If you're nasty.
If you're nasty.
Hey, and we do a tarot reading at the end of every episode for a little deeper insight into our topic.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I was just really excited to talk about tarot again.
She was so excited. All right. So this is the Normandale Park, part 2. And I'm just going to get right into it, really.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I just need to know the rest of the story.
Yeah. In the days immediately following the Normandale Park shooting, Portland's activist community was reeling. The death of June T. Rex Knightley, the critical injuries sustained and trauma endured by so many others created shockwaves that could not be contained to the boundaries of the park. Reporters scrambled for details. Law enforcement issued their first statements, and survivors struggled to process what had just happened. Still, this was not the type of group to pack up and leave quietly, even in the face of such horrific adversity, though it would certainly be understandable.
Yeah, but I definitely can't see them as that type anyway, because they're already facing horrific adversity. So,
yeah. I mean, the impulse is understandable, but they sure didn't. They sure didn't. All of June's friends went back to corking within 3 months' time. Even Dag was able to participate via live stream after being left paralyzed after the events of that night. Let's backtrack ever so slightly. The night of the shooting, Hope had surrendered to authorities at 8:27 p.m. and was charged with 2 felonies.
Hope was?
Yep.
What? Wasn't that one of the people helping?
Correct.
Who shot the... Okay. Because the gunshots were indistinguishable from...
They did technically fire upon someone at the scene. Within hours, the charges were dropped once law enforcement and prosecutors were able to view the footage that Deja had recorded of the incident.
Oh, thank God.
So, thank God.
Thank Jesus Christ. I don't often thank God, but for some reason that came out. I don't know.
No. Despite having reviewed the footage, an early statement issued by Portland's police chief following the incident described Smith's attack as a confrontation between an armed homeowner and armed protesters.
An armed homeowner would be the violent man.
Would be Smith.
Okay.
And the armed protester, that would be, the unarmed protest organizers.
Right.
The news coverage that immediately followed the incident similarly continued to mischaracterize the events of that February evening. Smith was, of course, taken into custody following the shooting as well, having been shot in the hip by the volunteer guard who acted to stop his rampage. He was hospitalized but survived, fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you land on that. And shortly thereafter was charged with multiple counts: second-degree murder for the killing of June T. Rex Knightley, attempted murder for the attacks on other demonstrators, and assault charges. In early court appearances, Smith pleaded not guilty. It quickly became clear that the story of Benjamin Jeffrey Smith did not start on February 19th, 2022. This was not an isolated act of violence. And there's actually multiple acts of violence that I didn't even include that have been talked about in some places. And I just didn't find a ton of source material on it. And I also just felt like I don't know how relevant it is, but suffice to say that he has just been a kind of violent dude for a minute.
I mean, I'm shocked.
I know.
This guy who just randomly got so violent so quickly for basically no reason. Weird how that doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, it's weird. Instead, it was the culmination of years of warning signs, red flags, and systemic failures. The case moved slowly through Oregon's judicial system, but in April 2023, Smith changed his plea to guilty or accurate.
Guilty. He did it. I assume. I mean, I trust all all this info that you're telling me.
There's literally body cam footage of him being the one doing it. Yeah. So it's pretty compelling. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 55 years. Effectively, this ensures that he will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Yeah.
The judge also reserved $58,000 in restitution for the victims through the state's Crime Victims Compensation Fund, which is not a lot of money for how many people were shot.
I was about to say, how many people was that again? Question mark. My voice gets really high.
One of the most harrowing stories is that of Dag. Shot in the neck, she was paralyzed from the neck down. She survived only through intensive medical intervention and lived with the constant support of ventilators and caregivers. Dag fought bravely. Friends, family, and fellow activists described her as resilient, funny, and determined to live even under impossible circumstances. Dag's injuries left her unable to go more than an hour without the support of others. Further complications were constant, repeated bouts of pneumonia, additional hospitalizations, and the daily challenges of a truly life-changing injury. She had lost so much control, her mother said, requesting that neither her name nor her daughter's name, their full names, be used to protect their privacy. Dag reportedly hosted a birthday party for herself where she invited 40 of her family and friends. For the first time in 2.5 years, she was able to enjoy her loved ones without a mask. There was no fear, her mother said. This was something that was her decision. I couldn't argue with her, but we miss her desperately. In July of 2024, Dag made the decision to be removed from life support.
Oh, shit.
She passed away shortly thereafter in her childhood home. Her death was officially ruled a homicide, directly linked to the injuries she sustained in the Normandale Park shooting. That meant the tragedy claimed a second life. Another devastating blow for Portland's activist community.
What was it, just because she was having complication? Like
she had complication. She was permanently paralyzed from the neck down. She had just suffered a lot in the short time since the shooting. From the very beginning, the Portland Police Bureau mishandled the public narrative of the Normandale Park shooting. I can't help but notice that you don't look surprised.
I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm not.
No.
And I don't. I'm not and I don't.
I'm not and I don't. Their first press release described the incident as a confrontation between an armed homeowner and armed protesters. And this description was flatly inaccurate.
That makes it sound like they were like intruding on his home.
Right. And that's important because they don't outright say that, but words matter.
Yep. Yeah.
And your people are going to take away tone that you may not even realize is being implied.
Like what does him being a homeowner have to do with anything about this situation?
Well, here's the funny thing. Next sentence of my notes.
Sorry, I'm getting outraged.
Nope. You should be outraged. You should be, because Allie, who also was shot multiple times, Allie perhaps said it best. Not only is Smith not a homeowner. Not only is Smith not a homeowner, we were not armed. We were in a public space. We were on a road next to a public park. We never entered his personal space. We never threatened him. None of us approached him. It was him acting towards us and us defending ourselves.
Literally. Like, yeah. Said it best.
And they absolutely 1000% have the footage in real time to prove this.
If he's not even a fucking homeowner, why other than to make that sound like how it sounds?
And maybe that was just confusion in the early, reporting. I want to believe that.
Okay, cool. Confusion. Fix it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. Smith was not a homeowner. He was a tenant in a nearby apartment. And aside from one volunteer guard who returned fire, the demonstrators were not armed. I think we can say that with some confidence because when the authorities showed up at the scene, if there were additional weapons, that would have been noted.
Yeah.
Everyone's vehicles would have been searched.
Well, they took the one other person who did have a gun, right? Like they...
Yep. Hope was arrested.
Yeah, arrested that person.
Arrested and charged with multiple felonies.
Okay, yeah, so.
Yeah, which is fair. They have to, act in a certain level of caution. But if there were more weapons, they would have known about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or wouldn't they? Can't have it both ways. Like, are you not good at searching people's cars at a crime scene? Anyway, they were neighbors, activists, and volunteers gathered to support a community march. The framing by PPB did more than just misspeak. It implied that those shot bore responsibility for their own injuries. And there's a very upsetting statement that was made by Ted Wheeler, I believe, within just months of this shooting, where he basically said that, protesters were getting out of control and people needed to kind of take justice into their own hands. And
what does that mean?
What do you think to the right or the wrong person, those mean very different things. Yeah. But I remember watching the forensic architecture documentary, and Deja said, I remember watching that and thinking, he's going to get somebody killed. And for her, it was like, he's going to get one of my friends killed. For survivors and families, this felt like salt in the wound. June T. Rex Knightley was memorialized as a generous, joyful figure in Portland's activist community. Daig and the others who were injured were left to fight for their lives. To see them described as though they were the aggressors, while Smith's role was softened into that of a supposedly embattled homeowner, absolutely infuriating. Forensic architecture's reconstruction and eyewitness testimony helped community activists who immediately pushed back on this framing. Journalists and survivors alike pointed out that the Bureau's language played into a long history of law enforcement minimizing or misrepresenting far-right violence while painting racial justice activists in a negative light. It took nearly 3 years for Portland police leadership to acknowledge this misrepresentation.
And how much damage was done in that 3 years because of people who thought that?
In January 2025, Chief Bob Day issued a formal apology, admitting that the Bureau's early statements about Normandale Park had been wrong and harmful. Day said press releases issued in the hours after the February shooting in Northeast Portland had described the victim as armed protesters, when in fact they were unarmed traffic safety volunteers, known as Corkers.
Yeah, they weren't even the demonstrators, the protesters. Nope. They were the ones protecting them.
They were people trying to help direct traffic safely, help people that are protesting peacefully, as is their literal constitutional right, do so safely. Words matter. And I'm glad the statement was issued, but it feels like a couple years late and therefore a few bucks short. But by then, the damage was already done. Survivors and activists said the apology felt perfunctory and far too late. Trust had already eroded, and the community felt re-traumatized by the delay. In the eyes of many, the apology read as a bureaucratic necessity rather than a genuine reckoning with harm caused. Perhaps the most devastating revelations after the shooting were not just about what happened in Normandale Park, but about what had been known about Benjamin Jeffrey Smith long before February 2022. Smith was not an unknown figure to law enforcement. Beginning as early as 2006, tips were filed with the FBI about his violent rhetoric and extremist behavior online. Over the years, multiple reports painted a picture of someone steeped in far-right ideology, expressing violent fantasies and making threats. By 2021, Smith had attracted enough concern that FBI agents actually interviewed him as a part of a threat assessment.
Wow. They didn't get him?
They found him troubling, but concluded that he did not meet the threshold for continued investigation.
I'm curious what that threshold is and like how close to it he was.
It's tough. I mean, it's tough because until you actually hurt someone.
Right. Like, I don't think you should treat people like they're going to really cause a crime or do a crime, but
it's really tough.
Yeah.
The FBI standard is that there must be clear evidence of an imminent threat, an imminent federal crime, or national security threat. Because Smith was only making general threats online without a specific plot, they closed the inquiry.
I mean, you can't fucking arrest every troll, right?
Yeah. But it wasn't just strangers or internet users raising alarms, though. Smith's own cousin called Portland's non-emergency line in 2021 to report that Smith had made death threats, though it is clear that multiple red flags existed. The public record does not definitively show what became of the cousin's call or whether law enforcement locally pursued it aggressively. Jurisdictional questions and delays seem to have played a role, but the exact path from report to response remains murky, which is a polite way of saying, who the fuck knows?
I mean, that makes sense for something that seems to not have gone anywhere, that they wouldn't track how it got to get nowhere.
Some reporting that I saw indicates that the PPB transferred that report to Indiana police because that's where he had previously been living, which I don't know. That's just something I read. I can't
You deal with it, Indiana.
That. Yeah, I mean, it's not unlike police bullshit that we've heard about so many times, but I can't substantiate that.
Right, but could have happened.
Could. It sure could. Doesn't even feel unlikely. The result is what security experts call the known wolf problem. These are not people who appear out of nowhere. They are people well documented by law enforcement, but who nevertheless go on to commit horrific acts of violence. In Smith's case, he was a known wolf for more than a decade. Yet, because he never quite tripped the narrow thresholds for federal action, he was allowed to slip through the cracks. The FBI argues that civil liberties and constitutional protections limit how far they can go in monitoring someone like Smith without clear evidence of crime, which may hold a grain of truth under a previous administration.
Why is making threats not a crime?
Yeah, I mean, in certain instances, it is. If they're vague enough, it's not.
Like any sort of threat. that's a threat, if you're making any kind of threat, I feel like that should be just a crime.
It's hard to prosecute if there's not a specifically identifiable victim or potential victim.
Give him a ticket.
Something. I know.
If I speed, I get a ticket, but someone who threatens people online doesn't get a ticket.
It's hard. I'm not saying it makes sense.
Caitlin, fix our justice system right now.
Ugh. But for Portland's activist community and for the families of June Knightley and Daig, this explanation likely rings hollow. It's difficult to fathom how someone could honestly have been repeatedly reported, interviewed by the FBI as an official threat assessment, and flagged by his own family, and yet still managed to carry out such a violent attack. The answer lies in how American law enforcement and intelligence agencies historically prioritize threats. Many experts argue that American law enforcement and intelligence agencies have historically been slower to respond to far-right threats than other forms of extremism, especially in cases where warning signs were vague or the threats presented themselves online. Or they were white. In some instances, people making these warnings say they felt those reports were treated as nuisances rather than urgent red flags.
Can we treat everyone the same?
Yeah, realistically, if you're looking to be effective in any form of law enforcement, I don't know that you can treat everyone exactly the same. Super hot take coming from this far left, but I do think we're already not treating everyone the same.
Yeah, no.
And we're giving, deferential treatment to essentially white nationalist terrorists, domestic terrorists.
Yeah.
And it's a pattern of behavior from within our own government for multiple decades.
In this country.
For the survivors of Normandale Park, this is more than an academic point. It is a matter of life and death and a matter of trust. And when law enforcement compounds the harm by misrepresenting what happened, as PPB did, trust erodes even further. There's really no way around it. I tried to come up with a different way to say that.
Yeah.
It is what it is. This case is another haunting example of a man known for his rage and extremism, reported again and again, and yet still managed to kill and maim his neighbors. It leaves the community asking not just how this was allowed to happen, but whether those tasked with preventing such violence ever truly took the threat seriously.
Clearly not.
And it's hard because I realize that, in order to live in a country where we have rights, there are going to be restrictions and you're not going to be able to stop every crime. That's not what anyone, I think, in their right mind would set out to do.
Yeah.
But it seems like we got a lot of white guys with guns slipping through the cracks.
Weird.
Anybody want to take a look at that? As part 2 of this story draws to a close, the violent acts of one man continue to cause a lingering ripple effect. Smith was no mystery. He was someone the FBI had interviewed, someone family had reported, someone whose rhetoric was public and extreme and hateful. And yet, when it mattered, he was treated as just another angry voice on the internet. He will be known for his fiendish rage and bigotry. If it's the last goddamn thing I do. His victims were and are people that cared about others, their community, equity, and justice. And they themselves were traumatized by not only that evil man, but also re-victimized by the very same insensitive system they hoped could be changed for the better. For Portland's activist community, the Normandale Park shooting is remembered not only for the lives lost and forever changed, but also for how law enforcement institutions failed them twice. First, by not heeding warnings about Smith, and then by misrepresenting what happened on February 19th, 2022. And yet, in the wake of unimaginable tragedy and violence, there is resilience. June T. Rex Knightley is remembered for her kindness and commitment to keeping others safe. Daig is remembered for her humor and bravery, even in the face of paralysis. Survivors continue to tell the truth of what happened, refusing to allow PPB's early narrative to define the tragedy. And this is the tension at the heart of so many stories that we tell on this show. It's the cruelty of violence set against the persistence of community. For every systemic failure, there are people that step up and they take care of other people. They care for one another. For every misrepresentation, there are witnesses and survivors insisting on accuracy. What happened at Normandale Park is irreversible. Lives were stolen and futures reshaped. But the story doesn't end there. It lives on in the memory of the community that refuses to let silence or misrepresentation erase the truth. To honor them means not just telling the story, but insisting that it be heard fully, clearly, and without distortion.
Crazy to me, like how many people have just still just don't know, and like they remember the story that they heard, a few years ago about how these protesters shot a homeowner, however it goes, like that's what they're going to remember.
And that's very much part of the narrative about how, Antifa is taking over Portland. And this is why I had people in LA texting me, asking me like, are you okay? You can come stay with me.
Yeah. A lot of people. A lot of people here.
Yeah.
And it was, it was a scary time. Like you don't exactly know what's going on all the time, but
yeah.
Like, it's just so dangerous to, I think,
just misinformation.
Like, steer people away from protesting, too. Like, that's extremely important. Like, why do you want us to not do that?
Right now, in particular.
Yeah.
And I don't think that when I started working on this case, I realized fully the broader implications of so much of it to what's happening in such a big, dramatic, and scary way right now. And it just seems to get scarier every day. And it's hard to know how anything that you say will maybe tie into something that's going to happen a week from now, because who fucking knows? It's
God, don't say that. Like, not where's the wood? Can we knock on the wood?
No, I mean, it's a kangaroo court where, I mean, people are making shit up as they go. And it's scary times. It's scary times. And this happened, just a couple of years ago. But it happened a couple of years ago, and the apology was this year.
Yeah.
Less than 9 months ago, the apology was issued.
Like, think about something that could be happening right now, like protests that could be happening right now where the same thing happens.
Yep.
And then you're thinking that the wrong side was the one, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You're thinking that the right people are on the wrong side.
Yeah.
For 3 years, however many years.
And for some people, that perception is just never going to be corrected. Up into this
Well,
bed.
let's go to tarot. Should we go to tarot?
Yeah, let's do it. When I was shuffling, I was seeing a ton of swords.
Okay, so we got the 9 of swords in reverse, and it's a woman of color sitting on a bed crying with her hands in her face. Yeah, her hands in her face, her head in her hands. Yeah.
Yeah, her head in her hands.
Did I say that right? Did I say that a woman of color?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that the vast majority of people are not mad if you get it wrong,
Yeah.
so long as you're willing to accept, criticism about the
Because I know that
things.
words matter.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I don't
Yeah.
want to say anything that's going to hurt anybody's feelings. That's all.
Yeah.
So, and we mentioned that they're wearing a beanie, and I
Yes.
had said that you mentioned someone who said they got shot in the head and you could see like a hole in their beanie.
Yes.
Did they die?
No.
Okay.
No. Because
It's
technically,
like that wasn't June you were talking about.
no, June was shot at close range and she was dead almost immediately.
Okay.
And then Dag was the other casualty, and that happened,
After.
roughly 2 years later. So,
Wow.
but yeah, obviously, like, numerous people were shot and injured. It's funny because I talked about how the demonstrators, the people that were actually marching versus the organizer group, they were on opposite ends of the park. And I can't help but think that if this had happened on the other end of the park, how much larger of a victim pool there potentially was,
That is very true.
which is, just horrific that you think about those type of calculations when it comes to, you know, gun violence.
Yeah.
So, 9 of swords. And we drew this in the reverse, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Our keywords are despair, isolation, sadness, fear, grief, and shame.
Shame.
The 9 of swords shows extreme anxiety, nightmares, tension, unhappiness, regrets over past mistakes or misfortunes. In many decks, this card shows a person weeping while 9 great swords loom above him or her. In the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, a woman sits up in bed as if waking from a nightmare.
Mm.
That's PTSD.
Seriously. Yeah, I was thinking about what all the people who went through after, or what the people went through after, like,
Yeah.
and then, having the stories come out about them that were wrong and having the wrong perception about them. That's like a nightmare. And like, how many of those swords do you have to take?
Because this suit represents mental activity. Much of your suffering may be in your own mind.
Mm.
Too many of us are not living our dreams because we are living our fears.
Well, I mean, a lot of us don't have a chance but to live our fears. That's like the one thing about this card. I think in some situations it can apply, but I don't think in a lot of them, like, you know, that it's all in your head thing is.
No, and I think the takeaway is maybe not so much that it's all in your head. I think that it has to do with kind of a mental and emotional anguish.
Yeah,
And in
that's
this
true.
case, I think that really applies.
Like you kind of can't escape being in your head.
Yeah. Even if you weren't physically or directly impacted by the actual violence of the shooting, the toll that takes on you mentally. 9 signify completion, and the reverse 9 can point to the end of a crisis or a period of despair. You may have determined the root cause of your misery and are ready to deal with it. Oh, that makes me think of Dag.
Mm. Mm.
Perhaps you've stopped feeling sorry for yourself and are willing to make the changes necessary to repair the damage and move on.
Oh. That kinda reminds me, though, of the police apologizing years and years later, but
That I mean, honestly, that still makes me think of Dag. I feel like she was ready to move
yeah,
on,
that
like
too, for sure. But,
in
like, just kind of the way you put it, like, make your apologies and move on, that's kinda,
yeah,
like
that's true. Like, I can understand that. Yeah. Ooh, very different sides of the same
oh, yeah,
coin.
very, yes.
In some cases, this card may indicate getting professional help with a problem. If only. If only.
That's maybe what some people should have done
Yeah.
to begin with.
In a reading about money, this card can mean you see where you made mistakes and begin the process of rebuilding after a loss. It may be
Mm,
difficult to pull yourself out of your problems, but the reverse nine suggests the worst is over. Don't give up.
they did, rebuild and go back to
Yeah.
protesting.
And I don't think that there was ever, because this technically didn't go to trial in the way that traditionally most of us think about it. There wasn't really a trial. It was like he pled guilty. Um, there's not really like trial footage to go back to. Like, I mean, I think back to like the Nancy Brophy case, and we literally were able to see footage of the trial day to day.
Mm,
Um, one thing that I didn't choose to include in either part one or part two was that at court, Smith's lawyer basically said that, he chose not to make a statement in court, which is something that, was his right to. And it's an opportunity in these situations to sort of, express remorse. And kind of the explanation was that he, in hindsight, just felt so abominable and just couldn't bring himself to speak in court. And yeah, I mean, it certainly elicits an eye roll from me, but if it,
I
you
mean, I wouldn't wanna speak in court either if I had done
yeah,
that, so
yeah, and you'd like to think that it was truly out of some, form of
I
remorse
think he just
or
didn't care.
yeah, I mean, that feels probably far more likely. If the reading is about your job, you may have suffered as a result of someone else's jealousy, criticism, or nastiness. However, this card encourages you to stand up for yourself and stop wallowing in fear or self pity. It may also recommend changing jobs.
That just reminds me too of the protesters and how they were portrayed, and you
Hmm.
gotta get up and keep going and don't get a different job, but, like,
I would say
no
it
protesters, don't get a different job, keep protesting.
reminds me of the PPP
Yeah.
personally, but
Yeah, they should get a different job.
maybe get a job. In a reading about love, you may be examining a relationship deeply to decide if it's worth staying or if you'd be better off leaving. Sometimes being alone is preferable to remaining in an unhappy situation.
Ain't
Be
that the truth?
yeah, be honest. You may have deceived yourself for a while.
Huh.
This makes me think of his previous roommate. She's
Mhm.
the one that shared a lot about his developing political and other
Oh,
ideologies about like, I was
right.
scared of him. He suddenly was like a conspiracy theorist and he was anti-mask and
Was that his cousin or was that that's a
no,
different
that's
person?
a different person that also
Jeez.
was afraid of him and felt scared. Yeah, no, he threatened his cousin. The roommate was just somebody who had to deal with his
Wow.
day-to-day craziness.
What was his job?
You know, um, If I came across it in my research, I don't recall, to be
Okay. I was
honest.
just curious.
Yeah. I don't know. I find that interesting to know kind of
Yeah,
the
what did he do?
background.
What did he
Yeah.
get up to day to
What'd you
day?
get up to?
Where'd you get all these crazy were you just online? Were you just chronically online?
Just chronically online.
You work from home?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people did back then.
Maybe he got laid off and that's why he was mad.
Who knows? There are very few monsters who weren't the fear we have of them.
Would they call him a known wolf?
Hmm. And I feel like outside of a situation where he has the advantage of surprise and he has a weapon and those around him are unarmed, I don't.
He was a monster.
Yeah, he was a monster, but I think that, it's like he created that situation.
Yeah.
And I just feel like he's somebody that I don't think anybody would have felt like they had any reason to fear him. So I don't know, maybe that speaks to in a way sort of evaluating who we think we should fear and why. And
Yeah, again, what's that threshold and why was he under it?
yeah.
That's what I wanna know. Like, what was he doing? Like, we need to lower the bar a little bit, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, again, it's hard. And
We don't want censorship.
yeah, it really is hard though, because unfortunately, as horrific as some of the things that I know that he has like publicly said are, it's not specifically threatening an individual or
Yeah.
even targeting a specific group. So it's really hard from a legal standpoint. That being said, I don't know, maybe we spend a little time sitting on the guy. I don't know.
Hatch him like an egg.
I'm not an expert, but
Alright. Should we say goodbye?
yeah.
Let's go. I'm tired.
All right.
Have
Have
a
a
creepy
creepy
ass
ass day.
day. We'll
See
see
you
you
next
next
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Or when we get a Wednesday meal.
Unless you're a furry and a murderer.
No, then see you never, loser.
Furries are welcome. Furries always welcome.